Government plans to scrap resort development after years of inaction. Protests force cancellation of police recruitment. Civil societies question public institutions over leasing of private property. Welcome back to RTTL World News. I'm Sonia Madeira. After years without progress, the Timor-Leste government looks set to scrap the Pelican Paradise 5-star resort project. The government announced the potential cancellation on Monday, while Pelican Paradise Group blames the government for not holding up its end of the deals.
After 16 years in limbo, Timor-Leste's first 5-star resort investment is likely to be cancelled. On Monday, the Timor-Leste government announced plans to call off the Pelican Paradise project.
Regarding the Pelican Paradise investment delay, the government is fully aware of it. The Minister of Justice and I, through coordination, have made the decision. We and our legal advisors have identified a few problems, and we have informed the investor who has been doing the investment for 15 years without progress. We will cancel it.
The Vice Prime Minister, alongside the Coordinating Minister for Economic Affairs, dropped the bombshell at Timor-Leste's economic performance dialogue with the private sector in Dili. Timor-Leste's Prime Minister, who was in attendance, backed the decision.
That's the decision, and I have requested the Prime Minister's view on this, and he agreed.
On Tuesday, Pelican Paradise Group released a statement claiming the government had not informed them of the project's cancellation. Under the Special Investment Agreement, which was signed by both parties in 2022, the Timorese government has obligations to provide water and electricity and clear the project site of occupants. Pelican Paradise Group says the 14-year delay stemmed from the government's failure to fulfill these obligations, which were critical for development. In 2008, the Singaporean investor acquired prime waterfront land west of Dili to build a 5-star resort, hospital, golf course, shopping center, and luxury villas. The group told RTTL World News it has spent approximately $15 million on the project. Timor-Leste's president also blames the Timorese government for failing to comply with its promises.
It's not only Pelican Paradise's fault. The government also, for years, failed to hold up its end of the bargain. For instance, the government was supposed to provide electricity and water, but Pelican Paradise should have also taken the initiative to secure these utilities themselves.
Although he agrees with the government's decision to call off the project,
the government made a decision and provided land for a development. But if it doesn't happen, the government can take it back and give it to whoever has the financial capability to carry it out.
it remains to be seen whether the Timorese government will face any legal liability for withdrawing from this multi-million-dollar project. Paulini Quintão, Fernanda Maria, RTTL World News.
The Council of Ministers has partially cancelled the recruitment of new police officers following protests at Timor-Leste's National University in Dili. Candidates protested in front of the campus following accusations of nepotism in the police force's 2025 recruitment process.
Protesters calling out the alleged unfair recruitment of 400 new police candidates.
Our demands that we have been carrying out are to combat the injustice that is rampant in our country.
Rejected applicants and university students conducted protest action at the National University of Timor-Leste with the message going all the way to the top.
I informed the President about the demonstrations, about the recruitment process, so we have formed a team composed of Australia, Portugal, and civil societies. We see the process of recruitment has caused strong contestation from society. We have all reached a decision that the best way is to cancel the 2025 recruitment and open a new recruitment so that we can ensure transparency.
The National Police of Timor-Leste PNTL's 2025 recruitment drive was suspended in February following allegations of preferential treatment. Upon the suspension of the recruitment process last month, a supervisory commission was tasked with reviewing the list of 400 candidates cleared for further medical examination. Investigations revealed that 71 of these candidates were identified as children of current police officers and a further 72 as relatives of veterans or patriots.
We cannot blame each other, but we blame the Recruitment Commission and the Ministry of Interior because they lack the management capacity to avoid this situation. That's why we appreciate the Prime Minister's decision to cancel it and open new recruitment to ensure transparency and fairness.
Meanwhile, 257 of the successful candidates are without familiar links and calling on the government to resume the original recruitment process.
We declare that we all meet the requirements. Therefore, we ask the Prime Minister to maintain this decision.
In 2025, the government authorized the opening of 400 vacancies for PNTL officers. Over 12,000 people applied for the positions and more than 10,000 passed the initial test, but only 400 were taken for further medical examination before the process was suspended by the Council of Ministers. The Council of Ministers has confirmed that all candidates who pass the initial document review must retake cultural, psychological, and medical selection tests. Prime Minister Gusmao stressed that the new recruitment process will apply an elimination system as opposed to the cumulative system implemented in last year's round.
The recruitment process for the second phase will use the elimination system, so cadets who fail at any stage are eliminated immediately to avoid problems in the future.
The Minister of the Interior has also been instructed to appoint a new jury to include national and international recognized experts and to establish an independent commission to ensure transparency, legality, and impartiality throughout the process. Jerry Moreira, Juvenal da Silva, RTTL World News.
Timorese public institutions have received backlash for leasing buildings and office spaces from private entrepreneurs for years. The institutions under scrutiny include Timor-Gap, National Petroleum Authority, and National Mining Authority, which have never operated out of dedicated government-owned offices. The government defended their rentals, saying it's temporary and an investment in the private sector.
These institutions have been operating out of private properties for years. Civil society leaders suspect these leases represent a conflict of interests involving government officials and private entrepreneurs.
I suspect that in all these leases, they divide the percentage between the institutions and the entrepreneurs. I can't believe a big institution like Timor-Gap reigned in Timor Plaza for many years without its own office. Why?
The lease for Timor-Gap's offices at the Timor Plaza Hotel cost the state $800,000 annually. And the state-owned company has been leasing the place since 2011. Meanwhile, leasing space for the National Petroleum, Mining Authorities, and Geoscience Institute at CT8 cost the state an estimated $300,000 to $500,000 per year. These institutions started the lease in 2023.
Timor-Gap has a budget for lease per year. if I'm not mistaken, is around $700,000 to $800,000, and at City 8, it's around $300,000 to $500,000.
Another state-owned enterprise for mining, Murakrai Timor, which was established in 2023, also maintains headquarters at Timor Plaza. However, the specific cost of its lease remains undisclosed. The government's economic affairs official says government leases of private property are temporary.
We need our own building. It takes time. We need to have a good plan through budgeting, which is not easy. That is why the government made the decision to respond to emergency needs, to work efficiently and effectively at the minimum level.
Mr. Martins argues the lease is an investment that encourages and supports the local private sector.
In this difficult economic situation, leasing an appropriate building from a local person is an initiative that directly encourages entrepreneurship among our people.
The core group of Timor-Leste Transparency says the government's decision to lease rather than build is a recurring burden on public finances.
Many office buildings are abandoned. Why can't the state use money to rehabilitate the offices that Indonesia left behind? But our government prefers to rent only private properties, which continues to burden our general state budget.
The government has identified a piece of land in Antaraklaran for future offices of the public institutions under the Ministry of Petroleum.
The Minister of Petroleum and Mineral Resources also asked for land, so we provide a place next to the Minister of Finance office. We have emptied that land for them to build their office.
Meanwhile, the chairman of the Geosciences Institute agrees having their own building would cut unnecessary costs.
A new building is very important to avoid unnecessary expenses for renting buildings from the private sector.
Critics argue that the government's high spending on state-run oil and mining firms has failed to yield a tangible return.
Timor Gap has spent a lot of money, but there is little evidence of a direct return to the public. While the staff salaries remain high, the company has yet to provide a transparent report on its return on investment.
The Minister of Petroleum and Mineral Resources responded saying the costs are necessary for the institution's operations. Other public institutions currently leasing are Timor-Leste's Ombudsman Office, State Secretariat for Professional Training and Employment, State Secretariat for Urban Planning, and State Secretariat for Local Development.
We pay the rent of the Excelsior Resort every month, $22,000, and our contract is for 1 year.
The Ombudsman just started the lease this year as its office building undergoes rehabilitation. And the State Secretariat for Professional Training and Employment's Labor Mobility Office just recently moved into City 8, joining the petroleum institutions. However, the financial details of the rental have not been made public. The Secretariat of State for Urban Planning and the Secretariat of State for Local Development are new entities under the current government. However, the cost of their leases at the Haksolok Hotel remains unknown. This prolonged reliance on short-term leases has resulted in significant rental expenditures that likely exceed the cost of constructing or purchasing permanent headquarters. Vicky Madeira, RTTL World News.
As global conflicts drive up oil prices and place increasing pressure on Timor-Leste's economy, RTTL World News speaks exclusively with political economist Fidelis Magalhães. As a former parliamentarian and senior government advisor to past President Taur Matarua, Mr. Magalhães draws on extensive political and economic experience. He warns of rising living costs and the urgent steps the government must take in response.
Global oil prices have varied wildly since the conflict began in February and remain higher than before the conflict. What are the implications of fluctuating oil prices on the national economy?
First, I think the increase of oil price will have an impact on consumer goods. So our basic needs, our daily necessities will face an increase in price. And the same goes with our food. So food prices are also expected to go up, which is driven primarily by the increase of oil price. In addition, I think considering that the Middle East exports most of its oil to Asia, to the Asian market, in this case to China, to Korea, and to the neighboring countries, the impact on goods for constructions, materials for constructions is also expected. So I think it is fair to expect that both the basic needs like food items and non-food items are going to be heavily impacted by this war. So the prices are going to be heavily impacted by this war. But I think there are also additional impacts that we haven't been able to consider. First, it has to do with our petroleum fund. With the petroleum fund, when you have, great that it was established for hardship and also for future generation. But if this situation or if this war continues, then the government of Timor-Leste would somehow have to find a way to help stabilize prices. And what it can do is actually to go and to take more money out from the petroleum fund.
Can the government do anything differently to become more resilient to issues like this in the future?
I think to be resilient is important, but that really does not imply creating wealth or to grow. So you'd have to have both. In a world which is highly interconnected, you would have to think of your resiliency in the context of your ability to withstand hard times, but also to be able to actively take advantage of the global market. So for Timor-Leste, obviously, what would be important is to actually to diversify its economy, to increase national output, because Timor-Leste largely relies on imports, and it really doesn't export much. And what it can do is that it should invest more in sectors like agriculture, fishery, and tourism.
Mr. Fidelis, talking about the sectors that you have mentioned, is the government doing enough to tackle this situation, like tourism, agriculture? Is the government doing enough on these issues?
I think, judging by all the data that are available, the government hasn't done enough. No government in Timor-Leste until now has done enough. Why? I think it is also a matter of political economy. So there is a structural problem because we rely on the petroleum fund, we rely on our oil, and in any post-conflict situation where you have this windfall of oil, normally the path to diversify is very challenging and difficult. And so, however, I think there is still a hope, and I think the government can still act. Now, there has to be, I think, a more aggressive approach to economic diversification and to the development or to developing the non-oil sectors. I think the government can do a lot more. But again, it is. I'm not going to say that it is easy. I'm not going to give an impression that I have some, a magic solution to this problem. But I'm simply saying that it is doable. But first of all, you'll have to get the political economy right.
Parallels have been drawn between the current situation and the 2022 Russian invasion of Ukraine, and how this this conflict affect Timor-Leste, and what similarities or differences can you see?
Well, I think I cannot comment on the Russian invasion without also addressing COVID-19, because the situation back then, I think at least since 2020, the situation that we went through was far worse. Far worse because back then, I think during COVID, you faced a situation where there was both supply side shock and demand side shock. So back then, I think, I'm not thinking, I'm sure, because it did happen. Back then, countries closed down markets. They imposed restrictions on exports. They forbade exports. So there were no, even if you had money, you couldn't really, have access to goods that you wanted to buy because countries forbade their firms to sell.
Thank you for talking to RTTL.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. I hope I made sense. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thousands of people got an early start this week to watch the hot air balloons take off from the edge of Lake Burley Griffin to celebrate the last day of this year's Canberra Balloon Spectacular.
For 9 days every autumn, this small patch of grass in Canberra grows something pretty extraordinary.
This is one of the best events in the world. It's right over the centre of a capital city. There are very few cities in the world that would allow a balloon event like this to occur. The pilots love it because they get to fly in the city. A bit of noise in the background, balloons are starting to get inflated, you can hear the fans, the excitement's starting to build. It's good fun.
Crowds get in really close to watch it unfold and hopefully float away, high, low, or wherever the wind blows.
I think everybody's so excited and maybe a little bit sad that it's the last day.
For this event to get off the ground each morning, a team of experienced pilots and forecasters assess the weather conditions to make a decision.
We also put up our own small pie ball, a little toy balloon with a light underneath it. We watch where that goes.
This year, the festival balloons flew 6 out of 9 days. Commercial balloons only missed 1 day because while they fly under the same sky, it's not exactly the same rules.
They have a commercial pilot's licence as opposed to a private pilot's licence, a bit like somebody flying a Cessna compared with flying a 737. They also carry transponders so air traffic control can see where each individual balloon is.
And from first light to lift off, it's 100% joy.
All the balloons, and I especially love the turtle balloon. The turtle balloon's our favourite one. Oh, it's gone away! It's here!
Even with sky-high gas prices, it's an event that always lifts spirits.
Off-field drama continues to cause disruptions at Red Hill, with Michael Maguire's right-hand man sensationally quitting after a coach clash. Just 2 days out from the battle for Brisbane, assistant Ben Tell resigned after a verbal spat with match overplaying tactics.
Another week, another drama at Red Hill, this one affecting the club's coaching ranks.
Look, Ben's tendered his resignation. We were, I suppose, shocked and certainly disappointed that someone like Ben, who we hold in such high regard, had made that call.
Tio's decision to quit has been fuelled by a spat with Maguire last week, where the pair clashed over defensive tactics ahead of playing Melbourne.
He's done really well for me. Just learning off him. He was a great player and a great coach as well. We won a grand final with him.
But crisis talks held between the coaches last night proved fruitless and have forced the club to defend their coach amid more off-field controversy.
He's out there every day working tirelessly to make us better, make our club better. And no one can argue that point. And sometimes, look, the external noise doesn't marry up with the internal reality. But for us, we understand that. That's the price of entry for being a big club.
Payne Haas is out of the battle for Brisbane due to a shoulder injury, with the Dolphins to regain props Francis Molo and Tom Flegler.
Obviously you want to do well against your old teams, and it's one of mine, so it's definitely one that I look at when the draw comes out.
Winless sides, the Dragons and Titans, square off Sunday.
We're just as desperate, and we just have to be the more desperate one on Sunday.
At Parramatta, Isaiah Yongi is remaining upbeat despite a breach notice from the NRL from a leaked photo of him smoking a substance.
We've supported Izzy, he's doing really well. Just worry about his footy, and he's bouncing here like usual.
And now the weather with Jageras.
Thanks, Sonia. Here's the weather for tomorrow, starting with Dili. Considerable cloud with afternoon thunderstorms, a high of 31 and a low of 23. In Bokau, cloudy and humid with a chance of a thunderstorm, a high of 28 and a low of 20. Mostly cloudy with scattered thunderstorms in Lauten, a high of 28 and a low of 20. Bobonaro, morning sunshine turning cloudy with a couple of late thunderstorms, a high of 27 and a low of 17. A morning shower in Aileu, otherwise cloudy with scattered showers, a high of 21 and a low of 16. Now, looking abroad. In Kupang, scattered thunderstorms in the morning, clearing for humid and overcast afternoon, a high of 31 and a low of 24. Bali, cloudy and humid, occasional rain and a thunderstorm in the afternoon, with a high of 32 and a low of 24. In Jakarta, cloudy with scattered afternoon thunderstorms, temperatures ranging between 30 and 24. Hazy sun in Seoul, a top of 20 and a low of 4. Darwin, mostly cloudy, a top temperature of 33 and a low of 24. In Sydney, windy and overcast with scattered afternoon showers, a top of 16 and a low of 15. Sunshine in Lisbon, a top temperature of 21 and a low of 11. London, cloudy with occasional rain in the afternoon, temperatures ranging between 12 and 4. And Belfast, a passing shower or 2 in the morning, otherwise partly sunny, a top of 11 and a low of 3. That's all for now. Back to you, Sonia.
Thanks, Geddes, and thanks for joining us again on the program. RTTL World News will be back with more stories on Sunday. Bye for now.